Well, Folgosinho is in Portugal. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about just a little bit about the location, then the mine, and of course, the main part are the mineral finds. And first of all, where are we? Folgosinho is this village. It's approximately 180 kilometers southeast of Porto. And Porto is in the northwest of Portugal. Our trip was in 2018, and so we flew to Porto, took a car there. And if you go east, then you come into the area which is called the Serra Estrela, which is, let's say, the border mountain range between Spain and Portugal. The mine is here on the right. It's situated about 3 kilometers east of the village of Folgosinho. Folgosinho may be, let's say, a well-known place among mineral collectors, but in reality, it's just a very small village, just a few streets. It's almost in the mountains of Portugal. And the mine is called Sítio do Castelo. Sítio means site, and so this is site of the castle. I didn't see a castle, but there should be a castle somewhere. And originally it was meant for mining quartz and tungsten ore, and the tungsten was situated in the quartz veins. And, that the mining stopped already in '84, and the whole thing closed down in '92. What's left is let's say, a site that can be searched, but nothing new comes to it anymore. It's geologically, it's a large pegmatite with a core of quartz, and that whole thing is embedded in a granite environment. And the secondary phosphate minerals are found along the edges of the quartz core zones. So if you have a little, let's say, understanding of geology, then you could find the hotspots where you could find the secondary minerals. The mine is up the hill here, and the mine is the whole hill is the mine, but you can park there just on the street. But then you have to go up, and this is a picture of let's say some 20 years ago, and you see that the slope here, the slope is still filled with all kinds of secondary material. But nowadays that's completely gone. So in the depth, on the surface, on the bottom, you can't find anything anymore. But you have to climb, and you have to go up. And this looks easier than it was. It's steep, it's slippery, it's punctuated by all kinds of gullies. So and the route is this is me. The route is going up there, and you have to go all the way up there. And but once you reach the top, you have a fantastic view over the region. At the time when we were there, that was only 3 degrees. So up there, you froze your guts off, but it was really cold. But the view was fantastic. And then when you are at the top, you see all kinds of, let's say, small mine entrances. And actually, they're more holes than actual tunnels. And in this case, on the left and the right, you see examples on the phosphate lenses. And that are the most interesting spots that you can find. And on the next slide, you will see a few of the examples there. These are all, let's say, in the walls of inside the tunnels or just outside the tunnels. You find these layers, and they all contain the phosphates that you want to find. And you can also find or collect on the outside layer where there's still some good material, but just only on the top, not down there. Actually, these phosphate minerals are erosion products in common with primary sulfides, it's valerite, arsenopyrite, and chalcopyrite. And according to Mendat, there are 116 different species. And among those, there are two primary phosphates, that's triplite and isokite. They don't make any crystals, so they're just rock-forming minerals. So for us as collectors, they are not very interesting. There's only one type locality mineral. I'll show you that when I come to the sea. That's the last one. And mostly they are secondary phosphate minerals, and that's what I'm going to show you today. If you have some of that stuff, they're all phosphates, so they are soluble in water. Cleaning just by using a diffuse water beam, that's no problem. But don't let them soak in water for a longer period of time, because they all will dissolve. This is one of the best articles written about Folgosinho, and this is the second issue of 2015 from Revista de Minerales, which is in Spanish, and the original author is Pedro Alves. He will come later in this presentation. And he wrote it in Portuguese, but luckily this is the Spanish translation. I cannot read Portuguese, but a little Spanish. So this is, for me, this is, a source of information. Okay, about the phosphate then, the specimens are partly from my own collection because of the harvest in 2018. The guy I went there together, I went with Pierre Bossil. He's one of my Belgian friends, and he is a specialist on Folgosinho. He has been there about 20 to 25 times. He has a collection that nobody has. And he has, let's say, analyzed most of the stuff. He's my inspiration as when I'm working on stuff of Folgosinho. Pedro Alves is the guy from Portugal. Is the let's say the local specialist. He wrote this article just a moment ago, and he has some things in his collection that neither Pierre nor myself have. So I have contacted him and asked him if it was okay that I use some of his pictures for this presentation, and it was immediately okay. So some of the stuff comes from him. The side photos are made by my friend Jacques Veil, who is also with us, and the photos are from myself as always, and some from Pedro. Okay, I start with the three, let's say, most abundant and typical phosphates that are that you can find there: carcoxenite, phosphosiderite, and strangite. And carcoxenite is, let's say, a very nice photomaterial. First of all, it's hexagonal. You can see the drawing here. You can see that if you follow my mouse on the little the single crystals here in this spray. And that's the reason why I put it here, because it illustrates the hexagonal crystal structure from carcoxenite. This is just one, but I'll show you a few of them because they have different forms and shapes. These are stars, a group of suns, you can say. And this balls of fire, I call these. And yellow balls. And brown balls. And shiny brown balls. And this is the most delicate that I have. I still have a lot more. I found a box of Folgosinho material in my basement a few weeks ago. We're still working on that, and the number of cacoxenite specimens is it's only growing. But this is you see that this is just 1 millimeter, and the whole picture. Huh? So you see how small these little sprays are. They're very detailed, and that's this is one of the most delicate things that I have. Right, then phosphosideride, strengite, they have the same chemical structure. That is iron phosphate with a little water, and so they are polymorphs or polymorphs from each other, and you can find them from colorless to pink to deep purple, and the visual ID. If you don't want to fully analyze everything, then you have to try to make a visual distinction. And you can only do that by the crystal structure. Phosphosideride is monoclinic, which you can see here, and strengite is orthorhombic. First, I show you a few things that you cannot keep apart. These are virtually non-distinguishable. There seems to be some consensus. That means that the more pink is in the direction of strengite, and the more purple would be more in the direction of phosphosideride, which gives you a distinction problem, of course. What I do know that if you can see these small needle-like looking structures, that should be strengite. But you see that it's impossible to keep them apart in this way. So you have to find other crystals like these, and this is very good to keep apart because strengite is here, and this is phosphosideride. Not about the color, but it's about the crystal shape. Strengite left, phosphosideride on the right side. And a few beauties of this upper left is the upper two are very clearly phosphosideride. This is very clearly strengite, unmistakably, and this is, you name it, one of the two which is impossible to keep apart. Okay, so these were the three most abundant there, and now the less abundant and the utterly rare. And to start with, this is, I have been assured by Pierre that this is apatite. It's a sort of cathedral, I think. It's not very fancy, but this is the form of apatite that occurs in white some specimens, and this white stuff is always apatite. And, this is the first, let's say, very rare thing. Barbosalite is iron phosphate, and you find it in quite some places all over the world, but almost always as dull, opaque, more crust than an overgrow of something. Black, of course, but crystals are very rare. This can be considered as a top find. I have two of them, and this one is also on Mindot, I think. Barbosalite. Then the very small ones, benyacarite, and in this picture, in this photo, the benyacarites are the little, very small, whitish plates you can see here if you follow my mouse, and you see that they are the same as the crystal drawing. The host is all phosphosiderite, but this is benzocarite, and benzocarite is worldwide quite rare, but it's here it's very common, and it's almost always associated with phosphosiderite. They are always very particularly small. They are the tiny white blocks, as you can see. And just like with strangite, there is a dimorph that's called polcarite, and most likely it occurs here also. But as far as I know, it is much rarer, certainly here, and visually they are indistinguishable. But as far as I know, about 98% should be benzocarite. And this is another one which you see is one here and a few small ones here. Once again on the phosphosiderite, and this is it's almost the common association. Color usually tends to not colorless but to pale green, and that makes you see that in this one. This crystal is about 0.15 millimeters, but you see that is greenish, and that is let's say a distinctive characteristic. So if you they are relatively easy if you see them, and if you find them, they are relatively easy to identify, just because of the shape and the color. Then we get beronite. Beronite is once again iron phosphate. It occurs in two colors, orange to yellow, like this one, and also dark green. And this orange variety was formerly called eleonorite because it was thought that it was a separate variety. But in 2021, it was demonstrated that eleonorite and beronite are identical. Consequently, that name was abandoned by the IMA, so we have orange beronite crystals and green ferroberonite, and I will show you that in a moment. So the orange variety is beronite, and the green variety is ferroberonite. The previous image showed beronite mostly occurs in sprays. But just every now and then you encounter, let's say, single crystals, loose crystals, that are separated enough to see the crystal structure. And this is one as such. But, well, the crystals on 0.3 are very small. But if you take a close look, you can see that they match the crystal drawing. Beronite often occurs together with strangite, and then you get these kinds of let's say beauties. These are beautiful combinations. The color is great, I think, and so these combinations are quite abundant. So you can choose the best. Then we come to bermanite. Bermanite is manganese phosphate, and usually forms indistinct and very dense aggregates, like this one. However, identification is easy and unmistakable due to the color and the texture, and experts on Folgosinho recognize it immediately. Clearly visible crystals are sometimes present too, sometimes, not very often, but sometimes, but also very small. So take a look at the next one. This is, let's say, 0.4 millimeter high. And this is not even a completely grown crystal. This is incomplete, which can the texture and color are let's say defining, and this is on the bed of phosphosiderite. This is one of the best specimens. Alas, I must say it's not mine, but it's from Pierre, and it's cerulophyte, and cerulophyte is all, wherever you find it, it's always very, very, very small. It's hardly ever possible to see let's say well-developed crystals. But this one, in comparison to the drawing, has one of these. Follow my mouse. This one here is exactly as the crystal structure should be. So this is unmistakably cerulean, and yeah, it's almost well, it's almost never as visible as this one. So this is very, very good find. Then we have dufranite. The dark rods are the dufranite. They're usually so dark, almost black, and often not very attractive spheres. They consist of intergrown rod crystals, but this one may, let's say, be called a fine specimen because of the well visible crystals. And the light green background is another independent mineral that very often occurs together with dufranite, and that's kitwellite. I'll show you that in a moment. But this combination is very often, let's say, often the case. This is unattractive stuff, but for the sake of completeness and because it's quite rare, I'll show it anyway. L-shannonite is always yellow to yellowy brown, forming spikes and spike-shaped aggregates like this one. And they often resemble a Sputnik. You can see that in the next photo. This one here. Worldwide is relatively rare, and here it's also not very abundant. So these sprays here are the L-shannonite, and these are stranzite crystals. And I think this can be dufranite, but I'm not sure. Then this is very new to me. The size of the photo is different because this one comes from internet. And so it is made by Pero, and well, the stuff is quite simple. It's zinc, titanium oxide, and it's called, yeah, well, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's named after a guy called E.C. Andrews, so it should be E.C. andrewsite, but that's strange. So maybe we can call it andrewsite. So, and I've never seen it before. I never heard of it also. Okay. Well, this is andrewsite, which I think is strange naming, and it's in itself it's quite simple stuff. It's a member of the ilmenite group, and doesn't seem really rare. But I haven't seen it from there, and neither from anywhere else. In the background, there are small, these little things here are frondolite crystals, and I'll show you these in a moment. Frondolite and andrewsite. This is also quite a rarity, extremely rare. It's only known from here and from the Foot mine in North Carolina. Ferraioloite. It's called. It's named after a guy called Ferraiolo, and it's an extremely complex phosphate. It's unrecognizable if you want to look at the crystal drawing, but it's analyzed, fully analyzed. Pierre has it analyzed, and it is ferraioloite. And I'm not sure, but I think the little yellow things are L-shannonite, but I'm not sure that. Ferraioloite. Then this is, as mentioned already, ferrobaronite. The difference with the orange baronite is the second Fe group in the formula. So this is trivalent Fe3, 3+, and that gives a specific color, making identification reasonably unambiguous. This is a rather chaotic crystal group. The next photo provides a somewhat clearer view. I call this thing is sort of a witch's broom, but they are needle crystals. unmistakably ferrobaronite. There's no anything else. What else it should or could be. So this is the iron variety of baronite. Then frondelite is are the little brown crystals. It's a phosphate that often serves as the host rock for other minerals at this location. In that case, it is quite dull with barely visible crystallizations. But sometimes it forms crystals itself, usually in the form of fibrous brush-like structures. This is a very rich specimen, which is why I photographed it this way. The details are more visible in the following image. That's here, and this is here. If you look here on the left side, you can see the crystal shape matches the orthogonal or tetragonal structure here, and so this makes it let's say recognizable as frondelite. Then something which is not very interesting, but for the sake of completeness, goethite, of course, is one of the most widespread minerals we know. Wherever there's iron, you will find goethite, and here sometimes confusion with rock bridgeite is not inconceivable. That too is an iron oxide, but with manganese added. And, so the color of the spheres in this image is not exclusive, but it's certainly telling it's rather dark brown, whereas rock bridgeite is truly black. So this must be actually goethite. Yeah, and then you would expect that gypsum is abundant. Gypsum is worldwide, of course, one of the most abundant minerals, but here it's extremely rare, and this is actually the only one that Pierre, as well as I, have found from there. And well, gypsum is a sulfate and not a phosphate. That's probably the reason, but it's extremely rare here. And crystal form leaves, of course, no doubt about the ID. Jansite is also phosphate, but there are a number of varieties in it. In the general formula here, as you can see, it's X, M1, M2, and M3 can be different elements. And so there are a number of different Jansites, but if you don't know which one it is, then you have to limit yourself to the connotation Jansite group. And these little yellow things are the Jansite, of course. Then kidwallite, you saw that as a companion from the dufanite. The entire image here is 2 millimeters, so you see how small these sprays are. And the crystal shape is barely recognizable, but if you have seen enough of them in this area and in this shape and color, then you know it must be kidwallite. That's always not set in stone, but it's an estimate with high probability. And yeah, if someone can explain to me what this formula means, then I would learn something new, because I don't understand nothing of it. Kidwallite. Then one of the most wanted, for me at least, minerals from there is lowiite. And it's one of the most attractive things that you can find there. I will show you a few. Lowiite is usually brightly colored yellow, always highly lustrous, and always well crystallized. And in this photo, there are these are, of course, are the crystals here on the right, and the crystal form speaks for itself. These forms here are exactly as they should be. And these are stronzite needles. So, another mineral, of course, which comes later. but they always occur together: lauweite, stronzite, and also stuartite. I'll show that in a moment. Here's a single lauweite crystal, just 0.3 millimeters. And as you can see, in addition to the characteristic yellow color, lauweite can also have yellowy brown to orange hues. And this is actually, these are more crystals than just one, because you can, if you look here, you see that there are different end faces. So this should be a form of twinning. This is one of the finest specimens I have seen from there. It's another combination of lauweite on the right, this here, and stronzite on the left, it's here. It's in a slightly different coloration again, but it's very beautiful freestanding crystal cluster. This is top quality, top quality. Leucophosphite. I have one or two of those things, but they are just too small and too unsightly to make a decent photo. So this one is the first from Pedro. This is really top quality. It's very often very difficult to visually distinguish leucophosphite from phosphosiderite in particular. But leucophosphite is much rarer locally. They're usually smaller, and that makes it even harder. So this one is analyzed, and one of the, let's say, the beautiful characteristics is the contrast between these orange plates and the blue, purplish phosphosiderite as matrix. This is truly a beauty. Leucophosphite. Then the bethanite, I have included two drawings here. Most people who have seen the bethanite before will recognize the form on the left, the deep pyramid, but well, rather as an exception, as is the case here, the bethanite shows longer elongated crystals. I have some from Chile, for instance, where they occur together with atacamite, but this broccoli-looking thing is it's quite rare, and it's rare in Folgosinho, and this is the one and only significant find. So this photo is always also on Mindat, and I made it on this request, of course. The bethanite is, in this form is an exception. This is a question mark, actually. The identification of this one is not 100% confirmed yet. Research is still ongoing. The green bristles could that's what we think is the NIPS combined, but it could be, it's not impossible that this chytrolite, you have seen that already, and it resembles also that. But the fact that these grew as separate units on the phosphosiderites is a different environment than the chytrolite normally at Folgosinho normally occurs. So that's the reason why we think this could be something else. Time will tell it. Research is still ongoing. Ledlamite. Within all of the 22,000 specimens in my collection, I do not have a single ledlamite, so I actually know very little about it. But the crystal pattern certainly leaves nothing to be desired in terms of clarity. And as far as I can compare this specimen with other photos of ledlamite on the internet, this is also a particularly well-developed example. But well, it's once again the collection of photos from Pedro, and so I got this one from the internet. But it seems that this is high quality ledlamite. Something that is really impossible to visualize or to ID visually The same goes here. I already know it from this photo. I don't have one. I have never heard of it, and it could easily be confused with leucophosphite or phosphosideride or whatever. So only formal analysis can correctly identify something like this. And that's what Pedro has done. And incidentally, the name originates from the type locality, and that's the Lunok River near Murmansk in Russia. But this is impossible to identify visually, I would say. Metaspheride always produces ultra-thin, colorless crystals with, let's say, sword-shaped terminal faces, it's like this here. They are sometimes difficult to distinguish from gypsum crystals, which also can be thin, long, colorless, but an expert can see the difference. But it requires considerable experience, and it should be noted that metaspheride is a decay product of Switzerland. I think I have already told that once when we discussed lead mate in Germany, where you also find metaspheride. And it's always meta because Switzerland cannot exist in free air. In contact with air, it immediately loses part of its crystal water and therefore decays into metaspheride. This thing is very dirty. I couldn't. I tried to get it a little bit more clean, but these things are so delicate that I didn't dare to go any further. So that's the reason why the background is dirty as hell. Then mitridotite in a microcrystalline group like this. The crystal structure is shown in the drawing. Is unrecognizable, of course, but we know that the combination of locality plus phosphate plus opaque brown spheres yields mitridotite. And there are other brown spheres, as you already saw with cacoxenite, but they look very different. This is dull and earthy. This is mitridotite, but there are better ones. That's the next slide. And this is very much higher quality and much nicer as far as I'm concerned. The green color is okay, that occurs quite often, but the ribbed surface makes it complicated. I didn't find this one myself, but I got it from Pierre, who indicated he was certain that it was mitridotite. And I'm happy, of course, to accept that because he's a specialist. This is, let's say, a nice specimen in a bed of colorless window-like window panes of phosphosideride. Then we get ensutite, which is quite a strong name, strange name. It's named after the type locality, that's a mine in Ghana, the Ensuta mine. And for once, it is not a phosphate, but it's a very complex manganese oxide, and one of the few metallic types in Folgosinho. Most of the metallic stuff there is this ensutite. And as far as I can reconstruct it, ensutite here is a weathering or an oxidation product of triplite. Triplite is one of the primary phosphates. That was I was going to say, and it occurs in large masses without visible crystallizations, and it does contain a lot of manganese. And, due to its high luster, you can make fine pictures. And here's another one, which is more or even more simple to identify because of the finger-like endings here, end pieces, and they are easy to recognize. This finger-like growth is quite typical. Plimerite is the little green cauliflower things. This one is also from Peru. I don't have any plumberite from here myself. I do have one from the type locality, from that Broken Hill in Australia. It's closely related to fondylite and rockbridgeite, because the difference is in the zinc, and it's always it's mostly difficult to distinguish between the three. The analysis is actually the only option. Let's put it that way. Plumberite has not been known for very long. It's been described for the first time in 2009. Yeah, this is to be complete. Pyrite, of course, is extremely abundant worldwide, but here it's more a sort of a byproduct that, moreover, does not often produce good crystals, and even those are the simplest form. So nevertheless, this can be called a good catch, because nicely crystallized pyrite is rare here, and the black stuff is rockbridgeite. Then this realgar and opiment. The realgar, of course, are the long red crystals here, and this yellow-orange stuff is opiment, and you see that they are both arsen sulfides, arsenic sulfides, and it's a very strange occurrence here. To my knowledge, only found only once. Naturally, of course, by Pierre, who had analytically confirmed that if you have realgar in your collection, keep it in the dark, because if it's exposed to too much light, it will decay into some white, some yellow powder, which then is is opiment. But this combination, and with the crystals still intact, is very unusual. And as far as I know, the only time that has been found here. This one is named after Serra Branca in Brazil. It was first described in 2000, and at first glance it's difficult to distinguish, in particular from fondylite, but at a detail level, the crystal form can provide some clues. Blocky versus straight prisms. It does require considerable experience, and you must have seen a lot of those things to make, let's say, a proper distinction. Well, you're not always right. I mean, let me put it that way. And it's relatively rare here, Serra Brancaite. Then stewartite. Personally, I find stewartite one of the most attractive minerals from Folgosinho. Always fully grown crystals, high luster, razor sharp boundaries, intense yellow, and beautiful to photograph. It's often difficult to distinguish from lauweite, with which it occurs together all the time. I've placed this photo of my own specimen here, because this is the sharp endpoints. You can sharp endpoints, as you can see up here, are very sharp, and much sharper than the crystals of lauweite. That's one of the things that you could, in which way that you could make a distinction between the two. But this one is from Pierre. This is the beauty. In terms of composition, sharp endpoints of the stewartites are still slightly visible up here. You can see that there also. But the contrast with the blue phosphosideриtes is particularly beautiful. So from a photograph point of view, this is a top piece. Stranzite, one of the more common minerals in Folgosinho. often occurs together, as I said, with laueite and stewartite. It's hardly to be confused with anything else due to the long, slender crystals in the typical straw yellow color. And usually they are completely opaque. And therefore, this specimen, which is somewhat transparent, is the exception to the rule. In most places on Earth, they are, let's say, very dull. There are two subspecies, Ferri and Ferro stronzite. Ferri stronzite is really another mineral than Ferro stronzite. They have two different type localities also, but I couldn't say what this is. So as long as you don't know that, then this is just stronzite. Another one here, and then indeed in combination with the laueite and the stewartites, the typical paragenesis here in Folgosinho. And it's even for me it's hard to make a distinction which is this is laueite. I'm sure of that because of the thick, long end face. But here these things are more pointy, so this should be. But I'm not sure of that which one is which. But this is a combination that is very common, but also very difficult to keep apart. Pale yellow crystals, not excessively well developed, but comparable to microcrystals of sulfur from other sites. Most people who collect micromounts know these, let's say, somewhat irregular pale yellow crystals always as being sulfur in opposition to the, let's say, the larger pieces that you find around volcanoes. Wavellite is unmistakable here, always colorless, long crystals, mostly in radial growth. I found quite a few of them, and they are all very well developed and easily recognizable, because there's nothing else there what this could be. This is unmistakably wavellite. Yeah, this is very difficult. Whitmorite, Belgian collectors probably know Whitmorite from Blaton, that's a type locality, and there it was quite common in the yellow to orange radial form. It's nice rounded crystals on a well visible background, but here, that's another story. And here they are very small and irregular, and well, this one is from Pierre, and he hasn't analyzed, but you wouldn't have guessed that this should be Whitmorite. I shouldn't have guessed. Zairite is special for two reasons. First of all, it's bismuth phosphate, as the formula shows, and bismuth phosphates are already quite rare as they are. But to my knowledge, Zairite is the only one found here. And it is a member of the plumbo-gummite group. Those who have ever visited Montmey in France know that plumbo-gummite is common there, and that looks suspiciously like this is Zairite. The analysis is always necessary. And I found one specimen myself that, according to Pierre, could well be Zairite, but that can only be confirmed by having it formally examined. This is you can't see the crystals; they're too small. So this is, let's say, quite irregular stuff. Zairite. Then the last one. This is zincostronzite. It's the only type locality mineral there. This is an independent variety where the manganese of stronzite has been replaced by zinc. So in stronzite, this is manganese, and here it's zinc. And what's very special is that this appearance presents a completely different picture than the normal standsite. According to Pedro, these things are twinned, but the color is different, the texture is different, completely different. Completely different outlook. But yeah, I don't have it. It's also Pedro's collection. And that was the last one for today.